Hey everybody, I'm Professor Giles, and in this video I'm going to give you an introduction to Excel and how to create a simple pivot table. And we'll also talk a little bit about housekeeping, which is basically knowing your data and how you want to summarize your data through some spreadsheet usage. Also how to clean your data, having headers intact and columns, and knowing how to edit certain parts to get your data ready to create the table itself. So let's get started. Now the first thing that you got to understand about working with pivot tables is to know your data. You want to know how to summarize your data. Sometimes summarizing your data is not easily understood. You might have a data chart looking like this, in which case it's pretty easy to understand and you can get your information pretty quickly. You can see how you lay this out. You might create one of these. Your data may not look like this. When you get your data, it might look like this. 9 times out of 10, this is what your data looks like. What you want to do is understand what you're working with and get an idea of how you want to summarize this information. So what do we have? We have a market, we have a segment, we've got countries, products, brands, units sold, manufacturing price, sales. What you want to make sure is that there's no missing data in here, for instance, fields that are missing. So as I scroll down, let's scroll down and take a look at the rest of the data. And what do we see? We have some missing blank fields here. We got a missing row. We'll take that guy, right click and delete, because we don't need that space when we want to create our pivot table. It should be all together, see, as we scroll down. Now in some cases you may have a lot of records. Look at this. We've got I don't know, 700 and something records in here, and we've also got a number of columns. Make sure no columns are blank and your fields have headers. That's the number one thing. Once you know this, then what we can do is create our pivot table. Let's go to Insert, and you're going to see Pivot and Recommended Pivot Tables. What do we want to do? Well, I'm going to show you an example that we might see is a recommended pivot table from Microsoft. They'll recommend some examples. You might see a couple of these guys that you might like. You might say, okay, I can use this to start out. But let's start one from scratch. So I'll cancel this and I'll go to Pivot Table. First thing you get is a dialog box. Create Pivot Table. Creating a pivot table, you choose the data that you want to choose to analyze, in which case it's got our table because it selected the whole area of the data that we had. And then you want to say you want to have the pivot table report be placed on a new worksheet. That'll keep it outside of your original data. So we're going to click that, and then you'll come up with this. Notice it says sheet 3 at the bottom. So I'm going to change this here by double clicking and type pivot. And then what I'll do is look over here to see what segments or countries, products, units sold do I want to put in my table. So what I want to do is get the country and the sales. So I'm going to click country. You'll notice my list of countries shows up. And then I'm going to click sales. It'll show me the sum of the sales, and I may choose profit. Now, when it comes to working with this data, in case I have more information I want to filter through, inside of this data we also have products. You see over here the list of products. I may need to see what countries sold what products. Let's go back, and I'm going to use filters to do that. So I'm going to click product and drag him down into the filters section. Over here you'll see products show up to the left, and you'll also see the all symbol. If I go down and I select what type of product, let's say a Carretera product, you'll notice the sales in Canada and the sales in Germany and Mexico have changed based on the type of product. Now what I can also do is select multiple products. I can say I want the products from these two or these two here, Amarilla, Villo, and VTT. These are the sales and the sums of profit from those 3 columns. Let's go back to choose all so you can see the total number that was sold. Now this is how a pivot table might work for these types of sales. One thing to remember about pivot tables is all data is unique. This data that I have here is indigenous only to what I am working with, and you may have other types of data to work with, and you need to know how you want to manipulate this. So studying your data is important to begin with. Notice I have the units sold, manufacturing, the price, the gross sales. I can get any of this data in my pivot table to see what we needed to discount, and so you can see an example of how I might use this. Notice it says sum of units sold. So based on the units sold, this is the profit that we had and the sales that we had, and those were the amount of the units sold. You can change formatting inside of your pivot table. Right click, go to Format Cells, change to general number or just number, and you can see what kind of number you'd like to have. Maybe no decimals, in this case 0 decimals, and you'll see I can get that. I can also select and make this money as well. No problem with that. In our next session, we're going to create a pivot chart from this table, and we're going to create a calculated field in the chart so that we can make decisions. Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, hit the subscribe button, click on like button on below, and leave a comment if you'd like to learn a little more about something. I look forward to hearing from you soon, and have a wonderful day.